Hello everybody, this is Danny from Deep South Homestead on porch time this morning. We've had some horrendous weather. It has rained and rained. It's now turned off. Went from being 80 something degrees and turned off, fixing to be in the 40s in the morning. Good thing about it is we'll be around 60 to 70, high 60s, maybe around 70 during the day. Weather's fixing to clear off. Fixing to have some beautiful springtime weather. And what that means is we're going to be heading to the fields. And when we talk about heading to the fields, we're getting ready to garden. Guys, we're getting into that time of the year. We've got just about most of our stuff that's cool weather stuff planted. We've got our potatoes now. When I say potatoes, I'm talking about Irish potatoes. Irish potatoes are up. They're up good 5 or 6 inches high. By the time this rain's over, they'll be on up there probably 6 inches or maybe a little better. And the funny thing this year is the potatoes that we saved from our last year's harvest, we were a little bit concerned about. We didn't cut them up like we did last year, because last year we cut them up, a lot of them rotted, because they'd done gotten a little bit of a soft stage. So this year, we planted a row and a half of them and just left them whole. Now they were small potatoes, they weren't anything big. We don't eat all the big ones, these were small ones. And they are right along with the ones that we cut up. So I'm really excited about that. Our fingerling potatoes that we planted up in the front garden, they're up doing fantastic. So they are really doing good. We was getting a little bit concerned because of the heat. Getting up into the low 80s here. We had just planted some purple top turnips, and the 80s turnips and heat do not go together. But now we're dropping back off into the 40s again in the morning, and be up in the like I said, high 60s, around 70 during the day. Perfect turnip green weather. So maybe, guys, just maybe, we're gonna get some turnip greens in here. And we've got our English peas are up now about 6 to 8 inches tall. They done got the little trindles on them, already grabbing for the fence. So they're kicking on along pretty good. But we still, guys, we've got our strawberries, we've been working on them. Our carrots are up about 2 inches tall. We've got a lot of stuff going on out here. The onions are coming on up. Not like I'd like for them to do, but they're, we've never been successful with onions here on our soil anyway. So, and we do everything the book says, and it's, I don't know what it is. We've tried different varieties. We've done it just like Dixondale says do it. We give them the water, we give them feed every 2 weeks and all this kind of stuff. And, they're only up about a foot tall and maybe as big around as my finger. Putting in everything in the soil that they say put in, bringing the pH where it needs to, the nitrogens, we're doing all this kind of stuff. We'll wait and see if it works, Garlic, now the volcanic garlic that come out of a warmer climate, the snow has pretty much knocked all of it down. It's not coming back. We think about digging it up just to see how it turned out. All of the other garlics we have planted, the whites and the hard necks and the soft necks, just, trying to figure out which one's going to do best here. They're all doing beautiful. The elephant garlic, oh my gosh, it's just Cadillacing. So the walking onions, the Egyptian walking onions, are doing superb. Our multiplying onions, doing fantastic. So guys, it's just, these things are all going good. These are all cool weather plants. Now, a lot of people planting gardens don't realize there are cool weather plants and then there are warm weather plants. Things like okras and squashes and cucumbers and watermelons and tomatoes and peppers and stuff like that have no business being out right now. Because they're not going to make it. If they do make it, they'll be stunted because, if you put them in the ground and their feet get cold, as the old people said, then they won't be able to run the race when the heat gets here. So, we're not putting anything like that out. Now, we do have our tomato plants started in the greenhouse. And y'all seen our greenhouse in the earlier videos. We have some tomato plants that's up 5 and 6 feet tall. You know, they're standing up there, beautiful, loaded with tomatoes. We have our new ones coming on. We have, the peppers haven't come up yet because the soil's got to be 70 degrees, and the fluctuation in the temperatures kind of makes it a little bit difficult for us to be able to keep that temperature exact without a heat mat. And we do have heat mats. It's just a matter of, guys, we stay so busy here, I'm not able to keep every little detail where it needs to be at. You know, we have to wait on Mother Nature to do her thing, and it will. Don't get frustrated with your pepper seeds if they don't come up. You have to understand how peppers are. Peppers like to be around 70, 75 degrees to come up, and once they get past the 2-leaf stage and start up to the 4-leaf stage, they like to get a little bit cool for a few weeks. And then they're ready to go out into the warm temperature, and they'll usually Cadillac after that. And I know there's a lot of people out there plant things like cabbages and Brussels sprouts and broccoli and cauliflower and all these things. And guys, they love cool weather. So now when I say cool weather, I'm not talking about frosting, and I'm not talking about freezes, okay? They just like cool weather. Things about plants like okra, stuff like that, you might as well forget that. Those seeds, they're not going to do anything. If you do come up, they'll be stunted, and you'll end up replanting. Now, some things like we're getting ready to get in the ground are going to be our green beans, our rattlesnake beans. We'll be getting ready to put some of our corn in the ground. Now, not field corn, but sweet corn. Probably won't put field corn in the ground for another couple of weeks, just to kind of see how the weather's going, because a little bit of the research I've been doing says that cool weather's coming back about mid-March. We don't know how cool. So we're a little bit hesitant about sticking some seeds in the ground. Now, some things we're not too worried about, because they can, an English pea, the plant can take a frost, and it can take a light freeze. But the bloom that forms on the plant cannot take freezes. It can take a light dusting of a frost, but it cannot take freezes. So we're kind of watching the weather on that one, hoping that it turns out all right. The only problem is, guys, I planted my sweet potatoes in the greenhouse. It's been so warm in there. It's been up like, a lot of days it gets up around 100 degrees in there, and we try to break it back down. But I've got sweet potato slips already up over a foot tall now, and I'm not even ready to be planted. So I may have to take and I may have to go ahead and put a few in the ground and figure out some kind of way to cover them up, because it may be just absolutely necessary. We were trying to have some ready for early planting this year, because all my records show we're about 3 weeks ahead on our planting season, and so far that's holding true. Hadn't seen anything yet that says anything any different than my records are putting out there. But one of the things is this grand solar minimum. Now, I'm not a big advocate of stuff like that, but I do pay attention to nature, because you got to realize, guys, we are one of the only generations that has not looked to the stars for our planting. Now, I try to plant by the stars and the solar system as much as possible. And I know there are times when I might miss it by one day or something like that, because, and when I say one day, above ground crops need to go in on the increase of the moon, below ground crops need to go on the decrease of the moon. But there are favorable signs during each one of those phases that makes it more, what's the word I'm looking for, makes the planting of certain plants produce more and just do better in certain signs of the moon, whether it's in, the zodiac, whether it's the signs in the feet, the signs in the knees, or signs in the belly, or the head, or the heart. There are certain times that during these periods that's best to plant. And when I say I missed it by a day or two, it might still be above ground crop may still be on the increase of the moon. It might not just be in the right sign of the body that I didn't get them in. I might have missed it by a day or so, but they're still in the right time of the moon. So, you know, we're getting ready to, here pretty shortly, get ready to start putting some stuff in. And we'll have a video about what we do and when we do it. It's just that this grand solar minimum thing has kind of got me a little bit worried, because I'm seeing long-range forecasts talking about being cooler and wetter. And I already knew the thing, there's this whole system that's been moving through the United States, up from Texas on up through Arkansas, on up into the Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio Valley, up through that area, up through there, Oklahoma, all these places, southern Missouri, with all the flooding and all that. That's just been predicted, guys. Science told us that that was going to happen. Now, is it man-made? I don't know. All I know is when I see this, I tell y'all, they're telling us that, you know, for the next 10, 15 years, this is just a precursor of what's to come. It's going to get wetter and it's going to get colder. And that region, north, you know. And I sit and watch for a whole week this past week, Texas in the 20s and 30s and stuff like that. Some sleet in some places and light snow flurries and things like that. I watch that, and here I am just not very far away from that, thinking, gosh, this is going to come into my area here. But way the polar vortex looped down, because there's no jet stream right now running through the United States to suck it back up north, it's just like they predicted. You know, they said Texas, up that same line of states I gave you right there up, is going to be wetter, and it's going to have extremely colder weather. So, who am I to say they were wrong? Because it's proven to be right. Now, whether man's doing it with the use of HAARP or anything like that, I can't say about that. All I can say is that what they said has happened. Now, is it going to continue for the next 10 or 15 years like they're saying? I don't know. But what I am telling you is I would be making some kind of provisions to try to beat what's going on. A lot of people go, Danny, it's so wet, I just can't garden. I can't get in my garden. Well, you know what? That's when you go to alternative methods. Raised beds. Raised beds dry out extremely fast. Now, it has nothing to do with the cold, but they can dry out extremely fast where you can use them pretty quick. Barrels that's been cut in half, all these kind of things, you know. Guys, you got to do what you've got to do. Container gardening. A lot of our containers here, when something happens, we have tomato cages we put around them, and if it looks like it's going to get too cold on some of our plants, we wrap them in plastic. And when I say plastic, let me tell you something. I'm not talking about running out to a store. I'm not talking about buying a roll of plastic. Okay? Here at Deep South Homestead, we improvise on a lot of things. We go buy feed sometimes in feed bags. We use our feed bags. If you notice the way a feed bag is woven, it's the same thing as this crap they put on the outside of houses they call Tyvek, which is just junk. I won't even put Tyvek on nothing. Now, I have it on some places on my house because I didn't know any better then. But now I know better, and I won't use anything but Typar, because Typar is a fiberglass woven mesh that is the best that was ever created. You know, I built $1 million homes. We put that on the outside of them. You can let that house sit there for a year and it won't even get wet. So that's what we try to use around the outside of our stuff, is feed bags. These feed bags are just nothing more than Tyvex. They're waterproof, keeps the wind off of stuff. If you rip one in half, stick it over the, or either just slide it over the top of the tomato cage if your tomato cage isn't too tall. We have gone as far as just taking 2 or 3 the fiberglass electric fence rods and sticking them around plants, sliding the feed bags over the top of them, tying them off to keep the cold off of them, so that they can make it through that particular period of time. We use feed sacks. We line our animal pen doors with them. We split them, and they fold open. Most of our doors aren't over the width of the feed sack. We just tack them to the door with some staples and We leave them on there until the cold weather's passed, and then we take them off and you put them in the garbage. You can do whatever you want to do with them. You lay them a good covering to go in ground around your plants if you're trying to keep down weeds and things like that. Now, they don't decompose well, I'll tell you that. We also use them here on our homestead for garbage bags. Our garbage company says garbage has got to be in a bag. So we take our garbage, and put them in our feed bags, and that's what we use for garbage bags instead of going out spending more money. So there's lots of uses on a homestead for stuff, guys. But when we talk about planting plants, the major thing you need to understand is look on your charts. What is a warm season vegetable? What is a cool season vegetable? If it says it's a warm season vegetable, do not put it out until after danger of all frost has passed, because it's a warm season vegetable. If it gets its feet cold, it's not going to do well. Now I sit back and I watch people. I don't know why your garden is doing so much better than mine. Why is your tomatoes bearing more than mine? Why is your peppers doing so well? How come you've got cucumbers? How come I don't have cucumbers? It's just like this, guys. Some plants are designed to grow in certain climates. A tomato that blooms in cool weather will end up being cat-faced, or the fruits just won't set. On the same hand, a tomato plant that's planted in temperatures above 85 degrees will not set fruit either. And if they do set fruit, the plant will hold green tomatoes forever and not turn ripe. So if it's going to be above 85 degrees and your tomatoes are already pretty good sized tomatoes, a lot of times you just have to get them off the plant because they're not going to turn anytime soon. And I know here where I live at, it gets to be 100 degrees a lot of times, and when it does, our tomatoes usually, we just pull them up because they really don't do anything. Now, we have had some heirlooms that have made it on beyond that heat period on into September. When it starts, the nighttime temps get down around 70 degrees and sometimes into the 60s. And those tomato plants are like they get a second wind. You start pinching off most of the buds and let one of the sucker sprouts take off from the bottom part of the plant. And it ends up producing good tomatoes into the late summer, early fall. Now, I guess that's the one thing I see on more channels than anything else is people not paying attention to the planting the proper seeds for vegetables at the proper times. Most people just go, well, this is the only weekend I got, and they go grab seeds up and they go throw them in the ground and hope for the best. And hey, sometimes it works. I've had to do it, I'm not going to lie, and I've raised some pretty decent gardens doing it. But since I'm going by the moon with a lot of my stuff, and I plant the right seeds in the right places at the right times, my gardens seem to do better. But let me say this. No one can predict Mother Nature. Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature wants to do. And being we're living in, I'm not going to call it the last days, I'm going to call it the end of an age, I believe. My Bible tells me that the earth is going to start going through some birthing pains. And guys, that's just like a woman in travail. The Bible says it'll be just like a woman in travail when she gives birth. And when the earth goes through birthing pains, I kind of liken that to the earth is just crying out because it's being hurt from everything that mankind is doing to it. Not only mankind. Now, guys, understand what I'm saying here. It's not all about man, okay? These things like the grand solar minimums and all that kind of stuff, guys, the earth just works in cycles. Every so often, the sun does something, the planets do something, the earth does something. It's been this way since who knows when. Way back yonder. Scientists have went back and they've proven with the grand solar minimum, if you go on their sites and you look, there's charts that shows you the years when the sun was cold, the years when it heated up, the years when it got cold, the years when it heated up. The rise of an empire, the fall of an empire. The rise of an empire, the fall of an empire. Why? that go into cold seasons. Vegetables won't grow, there's shortages of food, famine sets in, when famine happens, people die. And because back then they didn't have a way to truck food all over the country like we do now, all over the world. So, with that being said, wherever you live at in this nation of ours, pay attention to your growing seasons. Pay attention to what's going on outside. If it looks like you're in one of those areas, it's going to be getting a lot of rain, a lot of snow, and a lot of ice. Guys, focus on container gardening. Something that you can move indoors if you have to. If you've got a garage, it can be, let a garage door down, can be closed in, and you can heat it a little bit, to keep it from freezing. You can put some fluorescent lighting in it, or whatever you got to do. Some grow lights of some kind to make the plants grow. Guys, look, sometimes I'm not an advocate of all this kind of stuff. I like planting in the earth, but I'm also a realist. I also say, hey, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And it's all right to go organic, okay? But you know what? Crap hits the fan, organic goes out the window. I love organic, and we eat organic is probably 99.9% of the time. But if a life-changing event takes place, then, guys, I'm going to fertilize however I can fertilize. Because I want to live. I want to eat. I want to have something. I want to have food. I've talked to several biologists about this. They tell me that a plant doesn't know the difference between chemical fertilizers. Let me use the word synthetic fertilizers, because that's what they are. They're synthetic. It doesn't know the difference between synthetic fertilizers and organic fertilizers. And I've had so many people jump down my throat going, oh my God, Danny, I don't know how in the world you can put synthetic fertilizer in your soil, knowing that it's destroying the microbes in the system. I want to respond. I'm really hesitant about it, but let me say this to you. 99% of the people who say this are going to a doctor's office and they're getting a prescription of medicine that's made from a synthetic version of the real thing. And they're putting a synthetic version of medicine in their body to try to heal their body. But yet they're calling my case about using synthetic fertilizer every now and then. You see, guys, sometimes we gotta get the beam out of our own eye before we start talking to someone else. Because most people never think about this. And somebody the other day I talked to had never thought about that. I told him, I said, look, you're over here criticizing me because you saw me putting triple 13 on my corn. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you used that synthetic fertilizer on there. And I told them, I said, did you take blood pressure medicine this morning? And they're like, yes, I took blood pressure medicine this morning. Got mosquitoes here already, guys. They said, yes, I took blood pressure medicine this morning. I told them, I said, well, was it the real stuff? Or was it a pill, like a synthetic version of a pill? They said, what are you talking about? I said, 99% of all pharma today is synthetic. And you're trying to heal your body with something that's synthetic and you're not using something natural. Shocked them. Complete eye-opener for them. They said, I'm sorry. So we see, guys, sometimes we strain at a gnat and we swallow a fly. So, I know I've been going for a pretty good while, and I don't want to drag this out any more than possible. Be careful about who you criticize and why you criticize them, because a lot of times we do things unaware of what we're doing. Be aware. Do organic as far as you can do it, but do not do without, just simply because you refuse to do something else. Hope y'all have enjoyed Porch Time today, guys. Tried to tell you a little bit about what I know about gardening. Maybe give you some information that might help you. And I do pray it's been a blessing to you. So thank you from Deep South Homestead.